Right, so we'll be talking about small businesses and the impact of COVID-19 on entrepreneurs, but of course still setting up those particular interviews for you. But for now, let's just quickly take a look at our question of the day once again and some of your responses. We've been asking you what your views were on the return of more learners to school this morning. And Leanne, you were reading some messages earlier, but of course, I see there are some problems. Some parents actually posting some of the messages that they've been getting from schools saying, actually, don't send your kids to school today.
Really? I haven't actually looked at those ones, but yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's just a difficult time for parents. It really is. So we'll get to those tweets in a short while, because I think your guests already, you've got quite a few guests lined up, including my secret crush, Vusi, who is now on the line, apparently. So while I go back there and watch and blush, I'll leave you to speak to him.
Let me get into that. So small businesses are the backbone of most economies. And in March, as the COVID-19 pandemic hit, most small businesses did not have the wherewithal to actually deal with some of the associated chaos that followed. A businessman, Vusi Thembekwayo, was sure that government would introduce some sort of fiscal stimulus program to bring a lifeline to some of these small businesses, but wasn't sure it would have a real impact on the economy in the short term. And he joins us now via Zoom to discuss some of these matter further, or even Skype, I believe. Good morning, Vusi.
Sanibona, kunjani Sakin?
Siyaphila Puti. And thanks so much for speaking to us this morning. So 4 months into the pandemic, how have businesses been impacted?
Bad. It's bad. The only way to say it is that there's blood on the streets. So what we're seeing is increase in retrenchments. We have on our business several sectors and businesses that we support across different sectors. On the construction side, across the businesses that we support, we've seen an average of 26 people per business being retrenched. Now, across a line of 48 businesses that we support, and we're a small player, that gives you a sense of just how bad the carnage is. On the services side, we're seeing that it's almost completely dropped. Services-related businesses are bleeding. The truth is that no business has the cash flow to survive a 120-day economic lockdown. Not even large listed businesses. That's why you're seeing them doing capital calls on the stock exchange. So it's bad, and my expectation is that it's only going to get worse.
What about the safety nets, Vusi? Government introduced the Solidarity Fund, promising that it will operate with the highest principles of corporate governance and through an independent board. But how has that been doing? Do you know of any beneficiaries, and how are they coping? How have they found the Solidarity Fund to be of assistance?
I think the Solidarity Fund is doing the best it can. I do know of some beneficiaries of the Solidarity Fund, similar to with the Sukuma Relief Program, which is run by business partners. I know of some beneficiaries there too. One or two of the firms that we support have actually been beneficiaries of that program too. But I think the issue is that those funds are a grain of salt in the width and breadth that is the ocean of economic carnage that's happening right now. So those funds are wholly insufficient. I do think that the real problem in my mind actually is not only whether or not banks play a bigger, more developmental role, but also where are the provincial developmental funding agencies. So we've got Free State Development Corporation, which looks after the Free State. We've got MIGA, which looks after Mpumalanga. There's the Limpopo Development Agency. There's the Enterprise Propeller in Gauteng. And there's several other state funding instruments. And I've not quite seen where they've been with their assistance to small businesses at a time like this.
So we know that entrepreneurship and the support thereof in South Africa has been a struggle even prior to the advent of the pandemic. So most people opt for jobs rather, unlike in many other African countries where they would actually embark on this entrepreneurship journey. So are you surprised then that you haven't seen these enterprises actually doing what they were set up to do?
That's a big question, right? So first, I think you're right in terms of addressing addressing the culture that we live in South Africa, and around how that culture rewards young people who are capable and competent, who've gone to school. Generally, we're told to not necessarily start a business. But also you have to address the fact that we have a very poor culture of seed funding in South Africa. That's the global term for it. So if you look at pre-seed and seed state funding, you don't find high net worth individuals occupying that space and making sure that people who want to build businesses are building businesses. That's not the culture that we have embedded in our country. And as to the point you make, state funding agencies have really been sitting on the sidelines watching the debate happen for a very long, long time. To give you a sense, I remember when, back in the days when it was Umsobomvu, it was started with a 400 million rand fund. And I think it had an additional 400 million rand. Later on, it merged with the National Youth Commission. It became the NYDA. But even by that measure, back then already over a decade ago, it had been capitalized to the tune of 800 million. And every year since, it gets a couple hundred million from government. So the question then becomes, where are the businesses that they've supported? And where are those businesses now? Where are they faring? How many people do they employ? So there is a legacy issue around what has clearly been an ineffective, inept support system for building businesses. But there's a crisis issue now around whether or not we're responding to funding people in this moment. Let me just say that I think we are in deep depression state. If you study the US Great Depression, they had an unemployment rate of 24%, and it's known as the Great Depression. We've had an unemployment rate of well over 27% for at least the past 3 years. It went over 30% the beginning of this year. We've had 3 successive quarters of decline. We're now in technical recession, then in a real recession. So we're clearly in a depression state. And for me, that the different partners aren't coming around the table to resolve this issue is deeply, deeply problematic.
And speaking to those unemployment figures, those are, of course, the official statistics, which we are told in real terms may be way higher than what we are officially looking at. And I must also just state that funds like the NYDA will probably tell us that they do support businesses, and maybe we'll have them on to tell us more about exactly where it is, as you ask, where are these businesses, how have they been faring. But moving our conversation along, given that most people have lost their jobs at this point, Vusi, is this the best time for people to now think about eking out an existence by starting a business of their own?
Ooh, that's a tough question, right? Let me tell you why. At a macro level, you've got a very difficult economy. So the economy is depressed. By the looks of it, the economists are telling us we'll take minimum 6% drop in GDP for this year. That's going to affect big businesses and how big businesses spend, which is then going to affect, which is the most important input in any economy, sentiment. The minute people are retrenched, they're not earning an income, they're not able to service their debt, what happens is they begin to hoard cash, which means that money is not in circulation. Makes it very hard for people looking to build businesses, to build value propositions for consumers to buy their products. So the question you're asking quite directly is this the right time? Well, the truth is, Intel was founded during a time of depression. Microsoft was founded during a time of a recession. Apple was founded during a time of a recession. Airbnb, Uber, Facebook, Twitter were all founded in times of deep economic decline. So for the real entrepreneurs, it's actually the perfect time to start a business. Because what it means is you can now relook at the opportunity in the market. A lot of the legacy players will die. It's unfortunate, but they will die. But there's also an opportunity for a rebirth and for entrepreneurs to build new businesses in this new environment. The Great Reset, they call it.
So just a final question as a word of advice, as it were. How does one find a gap in the market at a time like this? How do you go about finding your niche?
Ooh. So, you know the difference between business owners and entrepreneurs? Business owners run businesses, entrepreneurs solve problems. So the real answer to your question is find a problem that people have that they're willing to pay you money to solve. And those problems generally aren't particularly complex. If you look at a great success story like Aisha Pando's business, Sweep South, a week ago we heard that Future Growth had committed some of their money from the impact investment firm to fund that business. Sweep South solved a very interesting problem, aggregating cleaners on a tech platform so that you and I can get those people to work in our homes. And we rate them similar to what we're doing on Uber. The business that my own firm is invested in, Bloomable, that aggregates florists all around South Africa so you can buy flowers anywhere in the country where you are on a tech platform. We're invested in that business. We've been in it for the past 6 years. So the point I'm making is that there will definitely still be an opportunity. It's not going to be easy. But if you're looking and you look hard enough, you'll find the spaces and opportunities there.
Vusi Thembekwayo, thanks for your time this morning, a businessman and public speaker, talking to us about the economic harm done by COVID-19 on business and, of course, how small businesses can actually try to survive this onslaught.